never know if it could change your life. Take a chance, you're neither wrong or right. You never know if you don't roll them dice. You better roll them dice. You never know if it'll change your life. Take a chance, you're neither wrong or right.
So much, just because, like, especially now, like, as things have settled in, it's like your entire rest of your day is just Zoom meetings. It's like, oh, D&D, it's one more Zoom meeting now.
I had players, I've had multiple players just be like, I'm sorry, I can't do it anymore. I'm in Zoom all day. I'd like to play, but I just can't handle it anymore, which I respect. And it's a bummer because, I've missed.
Yeah, that's totally
D&D.
fair. I definitely put some challenges on, like, how much social energy you have when you have to be in front of a screen and that's all your interaction with people. I'm living the same experience.
Yeah. So, real quick introductions. This is Dungeon Master of None. I'm Dungeon Master Rob.
And I'm Dungeon Master Matt.
And we have a special guest today, writer, DM extraordinaire. Mikayla, would you like to introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about yourself, what your jam is, what you're excited about, what your deal is when you're not talking to us.
Yeah, so I'm Mikayla Ebel. I am a non-binary pronoun, they, she, and I'm based out of Portland, Oregon. I've been playing Dungeons & Dragons for a few years now. Started running games professionally a couple of years ago, and when I'm not playing D&D, I have a day job, some like office stuff. You know how it is. The 9 to 5. And
Matt doesn't know what I do, even though I've told him a dozen times.
I don't understand. If you can't explain it to me in a sentence, it's not a real job.
No, I get it.
Yeah. And then just playing a lot of Animal Crossing.
Yeah, I feel that.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. Welcome to Dungeon Master of None. It's super cool that you are not only a great player and dungeon master, but you're also a new author of the upcoming hardcover D&D adventure, Rime of the Frostmaiden. Rob and I have been big fans or big advocates for, playing adventures written by people who have not been writing them for like 30 freaking years.
Oh, yeah.
So we're super excited to see this adventure.
Me too.
Yeah. This was not on our radar, and so when it was announced, like a month or two ago, maybe, is that right?
Yeah.
Not that long ago. We were both super surprised and very excited because it's a whole new crew of people, including yourself, and so I'm really excited to see what you come up with and to read and play an adventure that's got some fresh ideas.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I am most excited about this book. The entire primary writing team of non-binary and women authors, it's pretty much new territory for all of us. And Anne Gregerson and I had actually not published any kind of RPG thing before this project. So there's so much freshness, so many new concepts and perspectives, and just a willingness to really focus on making new stories rather than just telling the same old stories we've been hearing for 20 to 30 years.
Absolutely. I know that you're still under, NDA and it's not out yet, so we won't ask you too many specific questions, but, hopefully we can talk a little bit about, what's in it and what you're excited about, but, hopefully this will be good hype for when it comes out. But first, and we talked about it a bit before just now, but tell us how you've been handling the pandemic. How has your gaming changed? What have you done differently, if anything? How have you adapted? It's we're all figuring this out as we go along. You got to ask the question, right?
Right. Well, leading up to the pandemic, I was actually unemployed for 7 months and kind of couch surfing. So it was already kind of an exhausting time, and I wasn't doing a whole lot of running D&D or anything. just was basking in the excitement of this new book coming out this year. So going into the pandemic, I didn't have any like regular gigs or shows that I was on or anything like that. I started working with Crumbling Keep, which is this group that helps dungeon masters, especially in the Portland area, find gigs. And so I started running online games over Zoom and sometimes Discord, and was doing that like once or twice a week. And it turns out that parents with kids at home during the pandemic really want their kids to do something. So I turned into a dungeon master babysitter for a bunch of groups of 10-year-olds, and I ran a bunch of birthday parties, have 2 regular campaigns going, and my current regular group is 2 kiddos and their parents who like live across the country in different places. And it is the most wholesome, like fulfilling Dungeons and Dragons experience I've had to date. Like, I feel really lucky that I've been able to not only like have some stuff to do during the pandemic when we're all kind of emotionally exhausted, but that it's been such a good experience.
That sounds awesome and wholesome. I find when I'm like writing something new for my players or for like the next campaign, that things in my current game like kind of filter into my writing. So like, have you like found like, oh, I'm this wonderful wholesome story that we came up with? I'm gonna steal a little bit of that for Rime of the Frostmaiden.
Ooh, so let's see. One of the things that I think Chris Perkins mentioned in one of the D&D Live interviews about this and about the writers is how we have all conspired to try to put as many freaking goats into this book as possible. And this started with...
I love that.
I love that.
Is it like a goat scavenger hunt? Do I need to like be on the lookout for secret goat references?
Yeah, I think so.
Excited.
I really am excited to see how many made it to final, because I'm pretty sure we tried to put a goat in about every part of the book, and Chris eventually realized what we were doing and was like, really? So it was very satisfying for us to kind of have that little prank and inside joke going, but that's
Rime of the Frostmaiden : Pokemon Goat.
Oh my gosh.
Collect them all.
Yes.
On the other hand, or so I guess by the, in the other way, was it a difficult tone shift for you to go from Rime of the Frostmaiden to something to DMing for kids? Was it, a challenge to shift perspectives, or had there been, enough time to, build a buffer?
Right. Well, I'm guessing you're coming from the perspective of Icewind Dale being a horror novel, right? A horror adventure.
Yes. I'm making some assumptions about the content, which are totally based entirely on what I've read, and I have no firsthand experience. So
it'll be horror.
Okay. So I'm just wondering if going from spoopy Icewind Dale to DMing for kids was difficult at all.
Yeah. So a little background context. When I first started dungeon mastering, I was running Curse of Strahd. That was my first ever module that I ran, and so learning how to like learn the structure of an adventure book and how to like create scenes and emotion and descriptions, that was all very influenced by Barovia, which is very interesting because everything else that I create is pretty Studio Ghibli, wholesome Irish folklore. So
got it.
It was like a good balance between, and I don't think that it was like too difficult necessarily to switch over to running for children, except for one time.
Ooh,
go on.
You hear a story there?
Can you tell us about the one time? Yeah.
Yeah, I was running the Acquisitions Incorporated source book for one of my regular groups, and this is the one with 10-year-olds. And we were going through a dungeon. I don't want to spoil in case anybody's running that game right now, but we were going through a dungeon, and I didn't read ahead this week. And we get to this room.
We've all been there.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I just read what's there, and then I do a double take, and I realize that I've just walked this family into a chamber full of severed feet from a serial killer. And that was where we ended the session that time. And they were all like, "What? That's disgusting. What's happening in this room?" And I was like, "Well, I guess you'll find out next week. Make sure you take care of your feet till we play again." So, oops.
Yeah. Gosh, that's well handled.
Sorry,
Sorry,
you didn't read this adventure of for your family. It's gonna have notes of Hannibal and Dexter. Sorry,
right? Yeah, you didn't sign up for the mutilation subplot.
Yeah. It ended up fine. We breezed past it the next week, but I definitely saw a flicker of alarm in the parents' eyes, and I was like, "I'm sorry."
So I'm always conflicted when I think about horror and D&D, because I do think D&D is flexible enough. You can run most types of games with the system, and I do appreciate that, I sort of find horror systems that have kind of rules for sanity and stuff like that kind of icky. And so D&D's got that going for it. It doesn't have that. But it's not exactly made for a horror adventure. Did you find any challenges for that, or sort of tips for our dungeon masters who want to do horror but use D&D?
Yeah, so I think a lot of it for me, and from my perspective as a game designer and storyteller, has a lot to do with atmosphere. And so I would rather focus on a horror atmosphere and that sense of kind of creeping desperation or anxiety, which I'm quite familiar with.
Yeah. Sure. Yep.
Rather than focusing on a mechanical aspect of sanity, for example, in Betrayal on House of the Hill.
Yeah. Matt and I have both run and played Call of Cthulhu and other horror focused games, and there are things that I like about those, but I have come to agree with Matt that the mechanics being too on the nose, something like sanity or a fear meter or something like that, doesn't quite do it either. And this is a challenge for the DM, is you can get around it by crafting a narrative or by building that atmosphere, but that takes takes work on your part, and it takes commitment to the idea. So I guess actually what that makes me wonder is sort of what are your inspirations? So when you were thinking about building that atmosphere, I also ran Curse of Strahd, by the way, and I loved it, and it taught me a lot about DMing. I actually found it really challenging, but a really fun module to run. So what were your inspirations when you were trying to build that horror atmosphere, that sense of impending dread, that deep existential anxiety?
Yeah. So I was definitely not the one in the group interested in watching horror movies. That's never been really my jam. But I do love a good spooky story. And so a lot of how I kind of got in the mood for it is reading those kind of messed up Irish folktales, Japanese folktales.
So you're a big fan of ghostly women, luring men to their doom, wandering on the moors and calling to people, that sort of thing.
If peasants everywhere can teach us something, it's never leave your village, never trust strangers. You got a 75% chance of forever being
don't
messed
go
up,
into
right?
the woods. Don't go.
25% chance of making the big time, but
Yeah.
Mostly no.
Yeah. So yeah, a lot of inspiration from those kind of darker mythologies that didn't end up translating it very well into kids' books. But
Right.
I was working with Anne, and she's from Denmark, and so she grew up on a lot of these stories as her childhood folktale stories, and so we were able to collaborate a lot with that and being like, oh yeah, I know like this inspiration you're drawing from, like I know that book passage, let's like build off of that. And so it was from that, and then making some like Pinterest mood boards and maybe a Spotify playlist and just feeling a little spooky.
I love that. I have recently leaned into the Pinterest mood board for a lot of things for my DM prep, and it's been surprisingly useful. It was shockingly full of like really good stuff for DMs.
Yeah, it gives me a lot of inspiration, especially because there's so many things that can be both like tools or just like aesthetic images.
While we're on the topic of inspiration, like what's your, what are the things that like, if you had to, pick your top 5 sort of media properties or things that you're just like, this is what I want to feel when I run a game, these types of, you mentioned Studio Ghibli, like what else?
Yeah, so Studio Ghibli, another big like setting world building inspiration for me was the Wheel of Time series, which I read growing up several times through. Haven't read it as an adult though, so probably didn't age well.
I'm tugging at my braid in frustration.
I know. I've crossed my arms under my breasts.
I'm sorry. Yes, exactly. I tugged on my braid.
Are you excited or not excited for the television series? Have you been following the progression?
I saw that it was a thing happening, but as with most television adaptations, I refuse to get excited because then I could be disappointed.
It's probably wise. Yeah.
Well, the wheel weaves as the wheel wills.
Yes. Yep.
So, I heard in Scuttlebutt other inspirations for this specific adventure were sort of, kind of that horror mixed with survival, like of
like the thing,
an icy setting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything else you're personally drawing on?
Honestly, didn't go too deep into those. It was just a lot of like thematic material for me rather than any specific resource, I would say. And we definitely picked which things to work on based on that. So I liked spooky with some comedy. or something wholesome tucked into this scary stuff.
This is a big thing for me, is that actually horror must be, in my opinion, like a little bit funny. Like I don't like I think that it actually doesn't work if it takes itself too seriously. And this goes for books and movies and games, so I love that. You mentioned that you had DM'd Curse of Strahd.
Mm-hmm.
What's your and that was your first time DMing or your first serious DM role? What had you played before? What's your sort of like background with RPGs? We are ancient grognards who have been playing since back when it wasn't cool.
Yeah.
But I just I'm always curious to see how people came to the game. What brought you to the D&D community?
So I'm a second generation D&D player. My dad played back in his college days, and then when he got married and my parents had me, he put all that stuff in boxes and left it in storage forever. And so I didn't even realize he had any experience with the game until I was already grown up. And I came into RPGs from like a World of Warcraft place. Started with MMOs, and from there I just had a friend group that was pretty nerdy, and they were like, let's play Out of the Abyss, and ended up being a not good group. And so I started DMing and found a bunch of people on Twitter who were fans of different D&D shows like Acking, The C Team, Critical Role, and just made so many friends there that's my whole D&D community. It's all found over the internet, and from there I was able to find some local fan friends who are in Portland, and they're my best homies now.
This is also a heartwarming, wholesome Studio Ghibli story.
That's right. This is the kind of thing that you like to hear.
I aspire to that life.
Yeah, the internet is so often full of tales of misery and woe, but I have mostly found the D&D community to be pretty welcoming, and I've made some online friends and some in
real life, IRL.
What happens in the real world? I don't remember anymore.
Yeah.
Real life friends, off of Twitter and elsewhere, from being part of the D&D conversation, and it's nice to hear that you had a similar experience.
Yeah, it was. I didn't really have another option, I would say, because I was living in a really small town at the time, and outside of that one friend group that ended up not being a great D&D group, I was like, I want to play this game, but I don't have anybody that I can play it with. And I was trying to get my family to do it, but since my dad's stuff was in boxes, there was still a little bit of satanic panic hanging in the air in the religious circles we were around. It was hard to convince people to let their kids play. So
that's unfortunate, but not terribly surprising.
Yeah. So it was very refreshing to go online and then move to Portland and see just how much more open-minded people are and creative and diverse. I've found D&D Twitter to be pretty gay, and I love that as a queer person.
Extremely gay. Yep. Yeah, it's nice. It's very welcoming and very open about that. No, it's very nice. It makes a certain segment of the community quite angry, but that's okay.
They can be angry.
They can get in the bin. They're consigned to the dustbin of history.
Exactly.
This is such a great D&D story that you have, Mikayla. As you came from being a new dungeon master to co-authoring, writing a full hardcover for WotC, how did that happen? If you don't mind sharing with us, because that is such a cool story too. To a second chapter of your D&D story.
Yeah. So it is kind of a weird story. As I mentioned briefly earlier, I didn't have any kind of RPG writing publications in my history. I was an author on 2 nonfiction books for the Tillamook County Pioneer Museum, which are completely unrelated to RPGs, but also nice on paperwork to have.
Right.
And so the only RPG stuff I had written were my one-shots for Orcs, and then my campaigns that I run on my own. And so at this point I had been DMing for some groups for a while, and we're all great buddies. And Chris Perkins put out a tweet saying something like, we're looking for fresh blood, looking for new authors to bring to the table and to get some new voices. So who would you guys recommend? And people just filled the thread with their recommendations on different creators and DMs and authors, and a bunch of my players recommended me, and Chris went through every single one of those comments to find people, and that's how he kind of selected new people for the project. And so at the time I have anxiety.
Sure.
So I turned off my Twitter notifications. And a couple days later, I see that, there's a message in my Twitter inbox. And I go in, and I had left Chris Perkins waiting in my inbox for a couple days. And he's like, hey, do you want this job?
Real power move. Way to go. Yeah, way to
Accidental
leave Chris
power
Perkins
move.
on red.
I
Yeah.
know. But he still let me have a job. And as soon as that happened, Kate Welch was like, Mikayla, Chris let me know you're in the team. Can I snag you for another project? So I worked on 2 at the same time.
That's awesome. That's super cool. We're big Kate Welch fans. So.
Oh, me too. I love her to pieces.
We were sorry to hear about her departure from Wizards of the Coast, but I am looking forward to seeing what she does next. She's super cool and has a ton of rad ideas, and I was a big fan of both of all of the books that she worked on, so I'm super excited to see what's up.
Yeah, she's a creative powerhouse, and she's so nice. And she ended up being like a really good mentor for me throughout starting writing, and just like being a D&D professional. And she also has like anxiety, depression, and can understand the struggle. So I'm really grateful that she took the time to like notice me. Senpai noticed me.
That she did. That she did. How many people were on the narrative team, the writing team? If you can tell us. Sorry, I don't know if that's secret.
No, it's not, but I want to make sure I don't forget anybody. So let's see. Myself, Anne, H.H. Carlin, Celeste Conowitch, Ashley Warren, and then Lore Mother. So 6 people, I believe.
Cool. And this was probably pre-pandemic. So did you all get a room together? Did you work over email? Did you get on a phone call? I'm so curious. Matt and I have a bunch of things together, but it's just us getting on and yelling ideas back and forth, or squeezing it in between our day jobs. So I'm just so curious about like what the process is like at the at this level.
Let us inside the writer's room.
Inside the writer's studio.
Everyone's
Mikayla.
sitting around a conference table shooting garbage can hoops with crumpled up paper balls.
I really wish we could have had that, but like I'm in Portland. A bunch of our writers were in Seattle area. Anne was in Denmark.
Oh, right.
So...
That's right. That's right. You told me that.
Yeah.
So that's a challenge to getting in the room together.
So it was a challenge. It's true. And all of us worked different jobs for the most part. Some of us were full-time freelancers for RPG projects, so they already had a ton of writing happening. Some of us were in college, so it was kind of like, how are we going to get together and work on stuff? So we started some email threads, and then somebody started a Twitter group chat and added all of us, and it was like, I hope this is okay. Do you think it's okay? And we all just mutually freaked out and became really good friends. And that chat ended up being called the Valkyrie's Goats. And that's where we put a lot of our brainstorming and goat ideas. And then, of course, like Zoom calls. For me, it was mostly Anne and I screaming at respectively like 7 a.m. or 11 p.m. And these calls just being like, oh my god, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do?
That sounds about right for the creative process, I think.
Yeah. And it all came to fruition. It was birthed into the world. So it worked, but it was a lot of just like having to try different things to be able to work collaboratively remotely. And I think it helped that we all had like main sections we were responsible for. That way we had like goals every week or every month to get through.
Speaking of some of the specific stuff in the adventure, Rob and I are big fans of, sometimes, lots of us, we have campaigns already going on. Maybe we don't want to take a break to run something brand new, but, we love reading other adventures, getting inspired by them, stealing fun stuff, without getting into any, specifics or spoilers before the release date. Like, what kinds of fun things are in Rime of the Frostmaiden that, let's say, dungeon masters who are running their own campaign that maybe isn't in Forgotten Realms or just isn't this specific campaign can steal and borrow and be inspired from?
Yeah. Cool. Well, my NDA covers story elements, so I'm not going to mention anything that hasn't already been mentioned by Perkins or whoever on that D&D Live panel. But I would say a thing to be excited about that's very easy to steal is all the new monsters coming. And especially because a lot of them are kind of like Arctic tundra or like horror themed. That'll be really fun to spice up your campaign if you take your adventures into maybe a new location, if not to a new adventure book. Because we don't have too many snowy monsters. in books already. So I'm personally very excited about that.
Hell yeah.
I love new monsters. I was always one of my favorite parts of any new book is, I do love the stories, but I'm always flipping to the back to see what sort of horrific beasties I can steal and borrow.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm definitely very excited about that for sure.
Yeah. And even the locations, you can probably, clip a location setting or a map and use that in your adventures too. So plenty to pick and choose.
Well,
I'm afraid of losing my D&D cred, but of course such a thing doesn't actually exist.
Right.
But like I remember I played Icewind Dale for like half an hour and then quit like when I was a teen.
The
and
2002 video game, Matt, is
2002 video game.
I think it was 2002.
Okay.
And then I don't know, I think anything else beyond what's in the like basic books about Icewind Dale. But I know lots of D&D fans absolutely love the sort of this part of the Sword Coast.
Sorry, it was 2000. Yeah. Don't cancel me.
Anyway,
so
I didn't know, so you're safe.
I'm like Matt. My experience with Icewind Dale comes basically from the top-down CRPG from when I was a teen, and like a little bit here and there. So yeah, I'm curious in the same way. Like, sorry, I totally forgot what your question was, Matt. I barreled all over you.
You did. Like
I was excited to get the
covering
date
my
right.
question.
It was very important.
Like an avalanche.
Like an avalanche, yes. Is Icewind Dale cool? It's cool, but what's cool about it?
What's cool
very
about
cool.
Is
Temperature's very low.
Ice cool?
Yeah, so I love some of the new environment mechanics because that's new to 5th edition. And I can't really talk about much of that.
Okay.
But
we'll put a pin in that really cool. to look out for.
Yeah, and then I think it's really cool that a lot of the writers working on this project to tell the story and to like make Icewind Dale Rime of the Frostmaiden a thing, like an entire setting. Some of us had really extensive experience and like knowledge on the lore and the background and other source books in video games, but then some of us also had like only heard about Icewind Dale in passing as this like other region, and it's not in 5th edition, and so like what I learned about it was on the job, and I had a ton of information to pull from. So I hope.
Does Wizards like send you a stack of like homework? It's like here's all the sources that talk about Icewind Dale in case you're curious, or did you have to like go find that?
They sent us like primers on especially what we needed to know, and like Chris and Bill Benham were very good about answering questions. So if we were like, can we have like more context on this specific thing so that like we make sure we are capturing the tone and everything correctly, they were really good about it. And Chris definitely let me know when I like put something in and he's like, no, that's not a thing. Take it out.
That's funny.
Take out those goats.
Can you tell us what was the thing that got rejected from Icewind Dale?
Did you put something fire themed
it's
in
just
there?
like so
You're like, I want an 11th town, and they're like, no,
there's
only
exactly
10 towns.
10 towns.
No more, no less.
No less. Exactly.
I'm sorry, you've written here that dwarves have red beards, but I'm sorry, there are no red-bearded dwarves in Icewind Dale. Take them out.
No, for me it was monsters, because like in source books they want you to use the basic primary source books, so like the player handbook, monster manual, basic rules. And so sometimes I'd be like, oh man, I have this like super cool monster, and they're like, that's from Mordekainen's Tome of Foes, you can't put that in.
Oh, bummer.
But it's made up for by the plethora of new monsters, so that'll work out just fine.
That's awesome. So you mentioned this at the beginning, and and I don't want to, and I definitely want to touch on it because we do think that it's important. So, this was a group of non-binary and femme writers, and it was specifically, they sought out to bring this group together. So can you tell us what that was like, how it was for all of you, how that's important? What do you think that, I'm super excited to read this. I think it's going to show a different perspective, but I'm curious about what that looks like from your end.
Yeah. I think it was, man, that's a big question.
It is a big question. I'm sorry. The thing is,
okay.
I want to treat you like just any other, game writer, but this is, this is important. I think this is kind of, it's kind of a big deal.
That's why I'm trying to think before I speak, really, because it is really important.
Well, it's very important that you speak for.
That's right.
That's
right. You were representing everybody. So
all non-binary and femme writers. Yes. Me. Just kidding. So no, thank you.
It's a joke.
Oh my god, that was a joke. It was a really neat experience to be able to, as a bunch of femme and non-binary writers and professionals in the industry, to say here we are with this framework to work within, and we get to decide the story, and we get to decide what kind of characters we want in some areas. We had quite a bit of creative freedom, and just knowing that we had a bunch of very thoughtful and inclusive and queer creators in our group, I've just felt so supportive, and so much we had a bank of resources on not just mechanics, not just materials, but just having the same desire to tell the kinds of stories that we want to tell, and being able to say I want to put this in here, or I'm looking at this element of the story, what do you guys think? Is this okay? Is this going to be disrespectful or appropriation or sexist? Because even if we do have those layers of diversity, we don't have every intersection of diversity, and we also can have internalized sexism still. So we really wanted to pay attention to that and make sure that we were working together to make something we could really be proud of. And I think that as our individual teams of writers, I think I can speak for most of us in that we did accomplish that, and we do feel very proud of it and are excited to see what the final product looks like.
We have a lot of listeners, Mikayla, who I think, would love to do something like you've done in your career, right? They have their own games, they have their own side projects, and then, writing a full-length adventure with a team of other awesome creators. Is there any wisdom or advice you'd like to share with our listeners, many of whom are novice and aspiring designers and DMs that you've learned or you think you could pass on?
Yeah, I would love to. So I started DMing professionally at 20, and hadn't grown up with a ton of D&D experience, and so I felt very fresh-faced in a lot of ways, especially going to bars and playing and running games for people and being underage, and just being this is a whole environment full of people who love the game and are very passionate about it and have very strong feelings about it.
You're and old enough to kill a player character, but not old enough to drink.
Exactly.
Awesome.
I was confined to taking shots of root beer.
That sounds
just
gross.
No, I didn't drink it like a shot, but it let me feel I had something.
Something, right? So you could be
shooter of fizzy root drink.
Ooh,
bitter.
Yeah, out my nose. Nope. So I think a big part of it was it was like imposter syndrome, and just feeling like, okay, these people are expecting that I give them like a good story, and I'm a storyteller. I love fantasy. I love myths, but like, am I gonna do a good enough job? And so I think what really helped me to get where I am today is to stop worrying about that, or at least not let those worries stop me from saying yes to things. So it's like, yes, I will run games publicly. Yes, I'll show up on your stream and play, or I'll apply for this stream or panel or event. And then just asking people a lot of questions. So at PAX West, back when PAXs still could happen in the wide world, pre-coronavirus, I would go to like the Sheraton Lounge, where a bunch of the like Penny Arcade and Wizards people would go hang out in the evenings, and I'd asked to go sit at their tables and just ask them about how they got to their job and what their work experience is like, and if they have tips. And pretty much everyone was super happy to talk to me about it, and so that was very encouraging for me, and gave me some good advice about like where to invest my energy and where to like not worry so much about it, and then just continued to say yes to new projects, including, oh, like, do you want to write this official hardcover? And being like, I don't know how, but yes, I will learn how.
Ray, when someone asks you to write an official hardcover, you say yes.
Yes, you say. Yes.
This is, honestly, I'm really glad you said this, because this is really good advice. And one of the things that we get most often in our letters is new DMs who are asking for advice, or they're like, I'm not very good at this, or I don't know if I can do X thing. And, it's like the ghost of that French chef says to Remy in Ratatouille, everyone can cook, everyone can DM. And this has been our thing since the very beginning. And we just, I agree with you. It's saying yes. It's having confidence in yourself. It is something that can be learned. So I'm glad that you did say that. I am also somebody with anxiety, and I've struggled with this my entire life. But it's saying yes to things, and it tends to, if you do it enough and you go at it with the right attitude, it tends to work out for you. So I'm glad that.
And the attitude, that's a really good point, because I think just saying yes and having confidence isn't quite enough. It's also like building good relationships with people in the industry and the people that you look up to, and it's being willing to be wrong and to listen to feedback and asking for feedback genuinely, not just like, tell me I did a good job, but like, tell me what I didn't do right that I can do better. And that's just like being like a considerate person. I think that's what served me the most in this industry.
This is our most boring advice, but we, D&D, it's a social activity, not just, playing the game, but also if you want to, collaborate and work with other people, you have to build good relationships, and you have to treat people like people, and you have to engage, be sociable, pro-social.
Yep.
And sometimes this is a surprisingly large challenge for a game that is entirely based on interacting with other human beings. But
it can be hard.
Yeah.
If you are a good person with very little D&D skills, you will do way better than a person with a lot of lore knowledge who can't be nice.
This is actually true in life and in business as well. It actually matters a lot more if you can get along with other people than exactly what your knowledge or your skill set is. So yeah, work on that first. That's extremely good advice.
work on yourself, people. Be nice.
Yeah, be nice. Yeah. Yeah, people remember.
Or
when
you could go learn the exact height and weight of every character in the Forgotten Realms.
That's right. You could memorize all of the rules for Thaco from second edition, so that you can pull them out for no reason, just to bother people.
Yeah, exactly, just to bother people.
So obviously we've got something very exciting coming up for you. We're looking forward to reviewing and talking about Rime of the Frostmaiden, but if I can ask, if you can talk about it, what's next? What are you excited about? What are you working on now? What sorts of things are on the future for Mikayla?
My very next thing that I'm excited about happens tomorrow, which is Sunday the 30th. I'm going to be playing in a game for Jasper's Game Day Online, which is a charity
Cool.
for teen suicide prevention and awareness. Fenway Jones invited me to play, and so now I'm at a table with like Christina Ariel and Jennifer Kretschmer, and Michaela Sims is running the game, and I'm super excited to play because I haven't played with them yet. Yeah, I'm also going to be doing another Orcs online panel for Rose City Comic Con 2020, and that is September 13th, I believe. So right before Rime of the Frostmaiden comes out.
Good timing.
Super exciting, I know. But we're going to be talking about basically playing online during coronavirus. And
Awesome. For listeners who are not familiar, what is Orcs?
Yes, Orcs is Portland's very own pop-up tavern experience where you go, you have an excellent fine dining experience, and you play Dungeons & Dragons with a group of friends or strangers around a table in a bar full of other people at tables, and you all yell and eat food for 4 hours. And there's like raffles and prizes and really wonderful things, great people, high energy, and it's not happening during coronavirus. But it will.
It sounds like a lot of fun.
I love it.
Yeah,
that's such a brilliant idea. Like distilling down a like gaming convention to just the one part that that at least I actually enjoy, which is usually one game.
Well,
and that's all I have energy for anyway.
Yeah.
I don't want to play 7 games in a weekend.
This is something that I didn't expect to talk about, but it's interesting, and I'd love to ask you about it. But professional DMing is a relatively new phenomenon, and I now that I have myself been a GM or a DM for 10 years and have desperately been waiting for some of my friends to pick up the mantle so that I can be a player again. I'm realizing like actually that it's a relatively rare skill set and an in-demand job. And so I was surprised when I started. I mean, there have been a bunch of articles in, I think even like the New York Times, the New Yorker, about people who have become professional dungeon masters. But it's still kind of foreign and fascinating to me. So I'm wondering, if you just tell us about your experience with that, or your coming to that, I suppose.
I think professional dungeon mastering has had a little bit of controversy as some people have the perspective of like, oh, you're just another player, but you tell the story. Like, I can get some of my friends to do that. Why are you charging money for this? But like you said, it can be very in demand. People might have different challenges or obstacles, including like time or capacity to learn a new system that prevents them from feeling comfortable taking on the role of dungeon master, where you can be expected to like know the rules and to have guidance and be able to kind of guide the story so that it flows well and that your players have a good experience. Because there's a lot of really great dungeon masters out there, and there's a lot of really not so great ones, and people have horror stories about bad experiences at tables. And so I think that the demand for like a good dungeon master experience is very real, and it is a skill set. And to me, it's like, I'm not just selling time by being a dungeon master. I'm doing prep, I'm facilitating this event, hosting even, and to be honest, being a dungeon master for children so often online has really like made it clear that it is a service, and it's like
If I were going to DM for children, I would demand to
yes,
be paid. Especially if
yes.
I were going to do it regularly. I like
Please,
I li-
please let my school know, Rob. I deserve an extra.
You do,
stipend.
Matt. You should not do
Yeah,
it for free.
yeah, but it's
Um,
like I'm giving them something to do for a few hours. I'm giving them a break from being cooped up at home. I'm giving their parents a break, and I get to do what I love, but also it is work, and I have to plan for a good time and like try to keep it positive, even if I have 10-year-olds who just want to murder hobo everything, including each other, and get feisty. And it's like, okay, well, now I'm pulling out all of these skills that I've developed as a dungeon master, as a storyteller, as a babysitter. Even for my adults, kind of feels like babysitting sometimes.
unfortunately, sometimes the role of dungeon master is
It's the mom.
babysitter, mom, dad, negotiator, moderator. Yeah,
Yeah,
you're not wrong.
yeah. So I don't know. It's very worthwhile, I think, to hire a dungeon master if you don't want to do it yourself. At Orcs, I had a bunch of groups come in that, for example, there was a group of players who came in, and they were all friends, and they sat down and said, this is our dungeon master from our old 3.5 edition D&D game, and we haven't played in years. All of us are busy. We have kids and jobs and other things to take up our time, so we didn't want to put it all on this dungeon master to play, but we wanted to give him the gift of being able to play as a player in a game. And it's stress-free, just being able to show up and knowing that somebody wants to be there to tell your story as a dungeon master and wants you guys to have a good time. And I think that's where it can be most successful, having paid dungeon masters, is just knowing like it takes nothing away from you, and you are helping a creator to be able to continue doing that by paying them.
A very nitty gritty, and I think that's awesome. Like labor question, because I know we have a couple listeners who are, occasional professional dungeon masters or who are interested. How much should And sometimes this kind of contracting job, you can really get screwed over by the people not that they're trying to screw you over, but it happens, right? We're workers. How much should you? I'm sure there's lots of contextual factors, but how much should you ask for a rate? Do you mind sharing your rates? You don't have to if you don't want to, but
Yeah. Ooh. So
I can tell you what. I mean, I don't want to interrupt, but I can go ahead and tell you what's on the website for Orcs. I was going to see if they charged a different amount in Chicago or Portland, and then, but actually they charge the same amount, so it's fine.
Okay.
So it's on this 3 hours of D&D learn to play for $250, or a one-time party or event, 4 hours of gaming for $300, or an ongoing campaign, again, 4 hours of D&D regularly for $300. Which, based on, it's been a long time since I looked into this, but seems consistent with the rates that I've seen elsewhere.
Yeah. I was going to say, I consistently, as an artist in general, tend to undersell myself, which is a problem so many of us have. So it's still kind of a journey trying to figure out like what a good rate is. So for the things I do on my own, or with Crumbling Keep, I think I charge typically like $100 for a 3-hour game, something like that. And then for my long-term campaigns, I do bundles and then give like a little bit of a discount. And my most important thing is knowing like if I'm going to put the time in, it's going to have to be worth it for me.
If this
This
makes
is
you
kind of
uncomfortable and you don't
Oh
want
no, I'm just like trying to think really hard.
Okay.
I feel like my thoughts are getting kind of messy, but
Well, sorry for asking such a weird
you're
question.
doing
I
great.
just like
I think
I
it's
was thinking of
super-
these professional dungeon masters like yourself. It was just like,
Yeah.
how do you keep from it's such a new in market. Like, how do you keep making sure that your labor gets fairly compensated, right? When no one knows what is supposed to be a good rate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a very difficult question, and I am not super good at it. I've had to ask people like, "Hey, is this rate too low that I'm setting?" And usually they're like, "Yeah, that's too low." So time commitment, not just for the time that you're running the game, but that you're preparing for the game. And like, if I run a game and it goes really badly, like I want to have some money to make up for it.
Do you usually run pre-published modules? And do you have ones that you favor for that?
I have only run, like for business, a pre-published module one time, which is Acquisitions Incorporated for my family, my weekly family. And aside from that, I typically just snag environments or specific locations and come up with everything on my own. And I use the Lazy Dungeon Master by Sky Flourish as my system for prep.
Great book.
Love the Lazy Dungeon Master. Yeah, big fans.
Keeps it simple. I prefer a loose outline and then just improvising with my players. But not everybody really benefits from that style. But a rule of thumb that Orcs uses is to have 3 encounters by the end of your one shot. And so that's what I always shoot for my freelance events, for my Orcs events, and even my home games. And so I try to set my rate on like how much time is it gonna take to think up 3 encounters? Usually not too much. So if you're going all out, if you're creating props in a set and like dialogue boxes for your adventures, you should definitely charge like at least 200, 300 for that. So I think it can kind of vary.
Yeah. Well, we've been talking for an hour, Mikayla. This has been super great. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. Is there anything else that you would like to tell us or our listeners, let us know about before we let you get on with your day?
Note to self, though, begin organizing professional dungeon masters guild. See if such a thing exists. Dungeon Master.
I'm sorry.
We'll think about it.
They do. So that's what I'll plug here. They're not my projects, but I love them. So the Dungeon Masters Guild online, where people go publish their own supplements and adventures. That community is incredible. They put out some incredible content. I would highly recommend looking it up. And a way to break into that industry that I love, and I've made some good friends there, is the RPG Writer Workshop run by Ashley Warren. And they just recently did a month-long course, like seminar, where they had daily content. It was not expensive for the whole month, pretty close to $1 a day. And by the end of that month, if you follow everything and you keep up with the homework, you will have a RPG to publish by the end of it. And it's those kinds of things where the community has come up with tools to help you learn and help you become a professional, and have like really good resources and guidance on how to do that and follow all the copyright rules and have quality content that really makes the D&D community really fun to me. So RPG Writer Workshop, check it out.
Check it out. I don't have any experience with it personally, but when we reviewed one of the compilation things published on the Dungeon Master Guild's Workshop, Ashley Warren's adventure was one of my personal favorites. So learning from the best.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, very high quality. Highly recommend it.
Well, awesome. Thank you so much, Mikayla. We're very excited for Icewind Dale, Rime of the Frostmaiden. Can't wait to review it and see what comes next. Hopefully, when the pandemic is over, maybe I'll see you at Orcs or Rose City Comic Con or PAX West or something like that. But that's a long way away. But yeah,
We'll see. We'll see.
thank you so much for talking with us and for producing exciting new content. And yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on your podcast. Y'all take care. Keep the dice rolling. And
yeah. Cool.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Mikayla.
Thank you.
Okay.